He'll he'll show you his big horn, but he won't let you blow it until a dream of spring.
Hey now.
Hey everybody, Happy New Year from the Vassals of Kingsgrave's Great Linear Song of Ice and Fire reread. My name's Bina007 and I'll be your host today, and I am joined by Noah.
Hey guys, Pops88 on the forums.
I'm joined by Mary.
Hey everyone, it's Mary on Nymeria on the forums.
I'm joined by Michael.
Hey, Khal Wadege on the forums.
And by Jock.
Hello, Jock. My little Jock on the phone.
And hopefully at some point we'll be joined by Matt. Otherwise, this will be, for the first time in a long time, an all-European hosted podcast, because Michael sounds Australian, but he's currently in Europe. So that's kind of unusual for Vok. Normally we're very, very international in our makeup. So we are on the 98th episode of the Linear Reread, which is phenomenal. We are going to discuss potentially all works in A Song of Ice and Fire. There is going to be a TWOW preview chapter that we discuss at the end of this episode. I'll put it very clearly signposted in the after show, so if you're trying to avoid TWOW spoilers, you can do so, but we will not be spoiling Game of Thrones. So the last episode ended with Dany flying out of Mereen. In this episode, we're going to cover the Queensguard / Barristan 1, Tyrion 11, and Victarion. It's either 1 or 2, depending on how you can't count the Feast Dance chapters. And there'll also be a post-credits discussion of Arianne 2 from TWOW. These events take place between July 7th and July 10th, 300 AL. And kicking us off with Barristan 1 is Khal Wadege.
Alright, so Resnac dismisses Sir Barristan as a member of the Kingsguard and has replaced him with an assortment of pit fighters to protect the new king Hisdar Zolorak. Skahaz Makandak has additionally been dismissed as head of the Brazen Beasts, as well as Grey Worm of the Unsullied, though the Unsullied refuse to take new orders from anyone other than their mother Daenerys. In addition, Missandei has been replaced as Royal Herald, the Dothraki have been dispatched to find Daenerys in the Dothraki Sea, and Strong Belwas remains on the grips of death following his poisoning from the Locusts. The Pale Mare has spread throughout the war camps as well as Mereen, closing the markets and creating unease within the city. Barristan reflects on all the kings that he has served and in his mind failed, and how he failed Daenerys as well, being unable to anticipate what she would do in Daznak's pit. Daenerys was last seen flying north on Drogon, though half the city suspects that she is dead and are too afraid to say the words. Barristan thinks aloud that perhaps Daenerys has flown to Westeros, but Missandei disagrees, saying she would never leave the rest of us behind. Missandei has been contacted by the Shayfate, who requests to speak with Barristan alone. Later that night, Skahaz Mokandak tells Barristan that the sons of the Harpy poisoned the Locusts, and that they have found the confectioner who did the poisoning. He also says that Volantis has launched its fleet against Mereen, and that Hisdar will open Mereen's gates to them. Skahaz suggests attacking the Yunkai now and breaking the siege, as the bloody flux is devastating the Yunkish forces. To do this, he needs the support of Barristan and Grey Worm. Grey Worm reluctantly agrees to speak with Grey Worm, but will only allow Hisdar's death if his guilt in the poisoning can be proven. So this is our first Barristan chapter, which was not always planned by George, I believe.
Do you know what tipped his mind to actually put one in?
Yeah, he just needed a viewpoint because Daenerys is gone, Tyrion's not quite in the city.
Is it a viewpoint that you had been wanting? Were you excited when you realised there was going to be a Barristan POV?
It kind of joins the Duncan Egg to the latest story, you know?
The old guard.
Yeah.
Particularly in this chapter, when he reflects on who knighted him, who made part of the Kingsguard, all these ancient people.
Yeah, exactly. But it's only, I guess, it's only 50 years. I mean, I guess people don't live very long.
I don't think I was craving a Barristan point of view. It's not very exciting, it's super interesting, but I don't think I was very excited about it when I found out there was going to be one. they're good.
Yeah, I have exactly the same memory of it as you, Mary, that I think there are people out there who were really psyched for it and in some cases not happy with the results. But I thought it was a really interesting viewpoint, and I loved the historicity, or whatever you would call it, of him looking back over successive reigns. I really liked that. I think we need some older voices, some more experienced voices as well. It was beautiful for me.
I would have liked it if he really went into depth about all the old kings and all the old stuff we basically know very little about. But there's only so much you can go into. But in the Storm of Swords, he promised Dany that he'd tell all sorts of stories, and we got like 2. It was very underwhelming.
It's a total tease, isn't it?
Yeah.
At this point in writing, does George know he's going to do Worlds of Ice and Fire and that he's going to have an outlet for all his history making? One wonders.
Probably. This is actually, so Dance of Dragons is released in 2011, and yeah, I'd say people would be badgering him. They can see dollar signs if they can get anything out of them. So they probably started by now saying, George, just shit on a paper and we'll publish it.
No, but I also think think about how we were throughout all of Feast Dance about all of the world building that we feel is interesting, but the story isn't advancing, so it's also frustrating. So I think it's not such a bad thing that we don't have that many stories in Dance, even if they would have been very interesting to read at the time.
Yeah, realistically, you only want the relevant ones,
Yeah.
and then World of Ice and Fire is obviously for all that stuff.
And Fire and Blood, and that's why these books exist.
So actually, on history and thinking on what Barristan has done and not done, what do you think of Barristan's sort of I was just following orders stance and how he dealt with Aerys and stuff? Do we have any strong opinions here? No, I guess
Apparently not.
I have something, I guess.
You've got to respect. Sorry, mate. Go on.
Yeah, no, you go.
You've got to respect what he's done, and it's such a George thing to write about. The conflict that he's got with obeying a madman or becoming an oathbreaker. He's got a tough choice, and he's seen great kings already. He's seen Aegon the Unlikely, and Jaehaerys to a certain, who's a lesser great king, but still a hell of a lot better than Aerys. And even I guess Aerys, even when he was younger, maybe, but at the end there, he still stays loyal to the bitter end.
I'm wondering if you were like Jaime's age when Aerys was mad and did all that, would he have made the same decision, or would he have been more like Jaime and had become an Oathbreaker?
I think you would have been more like Jaime, honestly, because I think one of the really remarkable things I like about all these characters is how much they are shaped by their circumstances, and absolutely Jaime's youth is such a factor in why he does what he does.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's no way to know, but I agree.
My one big opinion that I have, which comes actually because of the information we have on the World of Ice and Fire, is Barristan makes the choice to try and save Aerys from the Defiance of Duskendale when he's been besieged for a year or whatever. And at that point, Aerys is pretty crazy. Like, he's already off the rails, and you can surmise that if he gets back into power, he's just going to be worse. So I think Barristan needs to beat himself more up about his decision to try and rescue Aerys. I think it really would have been much better if he just died.
Definitely, but again, he's
a Knight of the Kingsguard, he has to do it.
He epitomizes honor.
I mean, no critical thinking that's going on here. Why should I do this? Is this ultimately an honorable act?
Well, even after Duskendale, where he's done this amazing feat, he witnesses everything else with Brandon and Rickard Stark, and still says nothing. And that was almost the worst. That should have been the turning point, I suppose.
The thing with a lot of, go back to I'm just following orders, that mindset is that a lot of German and other soldiers had to make smaller decisions that they found, morally not right, but they just went along with it. And so by the end, when they were being asked to do really terrible things, to break then, you have to admit that you have power to make free choices all throughout your life. And so it's to admit a huge amount of guilt which again, think his age plays into.
Yeah, he's come so far, maybe.
He has to be symptomatic, not just of, everyone always brings up World War II, but just military training in general is all about subordinating individual will for the good of the corps. And I do wonder if there are lots of soldiers who get to the end of their lives, very Barristan types, honourable, very noble people who work in military organisations that aren't in major epic wars with evil stuff going on that's very obviously evil. But say you were a British soldier working in Northern Ireland or a contemporary soldier working in Iraq or Afghanistan, there must be people who come to the end of their military service and think, oh my God, what did I do? And to that extent, I do find this quite a moving chapter. And I think it's very moving because he has had no life outside of his service. So he can't comfort himself with, but my legacy is my family. It's such a brutal life in some ways. I think it's very admirable in some ways too. It's kind of a level of service and duty that I think if you were to talk to the Queen, she probably has some sense of that. But I think for contemporary people, it's very hard to imagine what a life would be like subordinating your individuality in this way.
Yeah, it's all consuming. I mean, at least soldiers get retirement. He literally is serving till he dies.
And it's interesting because in Dance we have a couple of examples of POVs of the Kingsguard where previously we'd only ever had Jaime. Mind you, I suppose in Feast Dance we hadn't had Jaime before Feast Dance. So this is the first time we're taking inside the minds of people who've had to try and live this sort of a life. Matt Varley, he's trying to install his Skype update, which is taking apparently forever, asks, do we believe the confectioner?
So I believe that this confectioner was put under duress to, say, poison the locusts, but I disagree that it was the sons of the Harpy who told him to do so. I think that it was actually Skahaz.
Does the confectioner even exist?
Well, Barristan says, I want to speak with the confectioner, and then in the next chapter, Barristan's on board. So I assume that there was a conversation that took place.
Okay. I wouldn't be surprised if Barristan was such a trusting, loving old grandfather that he just took him at face value.
But is he? He seems like pretty much straight up prejudiced against these people. Like, he complains about one person for wearing perfume in this chapter.
That actually is interesting when he discusses Reznak Reznak.
Men are men and women are women, and
But yeah, on the poisoning, I have a parallel here to make with the Purple Wedding, which I think is kind of clever. Just as Tyrion, if Tyrion really was going to poison Joffrey, like, he would never do it at the wedding where there's 1,000 people looking on. And in the same way, if the Sons of the Harpy really were going to poison Daenerys, they would not do it at Daznak's pit where there are 10,000 people looking on. Like, the manner of both of these poisonings, it's very staged in a way that's designed to point out a culprit, or a suspect. Someone's got to look guilty from this.
Agree.
That's an interesting parallel, yeah. So wait, to back up, Noah, who do you think poisoned the locusts again?
Oh, I agree with Michael, definitely. I just never thought this confectioner guy even existed.
Okay.
It was just something made up, and he'd just get like a brazen beast to tie him to a chair and pretend to be a confectioner or something.
Because we discussed in the last episode, I think, whether Histar was the one who had the locusts poisoned, and I don't remember really what people were thinking.
We kind of came to the conclusion that he seems like a patsy, which also is evident in this chapter. He just keeps fucking up. He doesn't seem like he has a plan for what happens after the poisoning.
But does he know about the poisoning? That's my question as well.
What, ex ante?
No.
I don't think he does.
Well,
I think the story's strongest if he doesn't, if he is innocent.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
I mean, the Sons of the Harpy wouldn't either. Because they've achieved their peace, like Yunkai are in Mereen. The slave pits are open. They're flaunting it in Daenerys' face. And they were for a few chapters. It wouldn't make sense otherwise.
What do you think?
Well, they did leave in that clause where they don't have any sort of PT over Volcana, so they can extract more resources or concessions later. So they're still in the game a bit.
So Barristan goes in on this plan to depose Histar. What do you think in Barristan's head is going to happen if it's successful? In other words, okay, you take him out, then there's a power vacuum. How do you feel as Barristan you are going to control who fills that? It strikes me as this incredibly risky maneuver. the idea that in the anarchy that there follows, you'll somehow maintain control until Dany gets back.
I agree. It is very risky and volatile, but I think there's no good options other than this. And also, in as Skahaz is framing it, Hisdar or the Harpies have committed treason against Daenerys, and so his hand is forced to an extent.
So it's his duty to depose.
Yeah, I'm sure he feels compelled by his duty when he thinks about it a certain way.
So I thought this brought up an interesting contrast, therefore, with Eddard, but maybe it doesn't, because I had thought he was committing treason against Hisdar, and therefore he was willing to break the rules for what he perceived to be the greater good, which is preserving Dany's rule or fairness of rule. But if you think that, and it sounds plausible, that actually he's acting against someone treacherous and therefore he's just applying the law, then he is very much acting like an Eddard would, and with honour and without compromising himself. And I had thought, because I had thought he was breaking the rules, I thought that was quite interesting. You have this very clear-eyed man nearing the end of his life who has seen so much and maybe has seen things that he thinks in retrospect he shouldn't have done by just being dutiful, being willing to finesse the laws to back a deposition. But yeah, there's two ways of seeing this, I guess, and I think one's more interesting for his character than the other. I was just trying to compare and contrast with Eddard, because I think they're quite similar characters as I was reading. Sort of good men, fundamentally fairly self-aware, put in very difficult positions. What would Eddard have done in this position?
It's a very strong comparison. I think the difference is Ned would have executed the hostages.
I agree.
I think it could be a bit of both, because you see in this chapter, Barristan's doing some mental gymnastics to try and justify this. He's like, well, Daenerys is my queen, and some Kingsguard would only follow the king and not the queen consort, so technically I can go against Hisdar and my hands are clean. But I think on a deeper level, he kind of knows what he's doing is in his mind playing the Game of Thrones, which he thinks is what the worst of the Kingsguard do.
They are there. I mean, it's his choice, though. He's been given an out plenty of times before. This is the first time he's been away. He's had time to reflect on his choices as a member, as following a king or a queen. But this is the first time he has to act independently, and he's terrible at it.
He really doesn't want to make a choice.
Which is unsurprising, because nothing in his life has given him training to make such monumental decisions. His life has absolutely been a training not to make monumental decisions. So maybe it's unfair for us to expect more of him. But I do like the humility. I mean, it's kind of interesting doing this linear reread, because we're shortly going to be contrasting Barristan with Victarion. So you go from a man with complete self-awareness and humility to one with none. And I know which one I'd rather have.
It's kind of ironic that he's been given no training in this, because he's one of the 7 Kingsguard, and one of the Kingsguard commander is expected to have a seat on the small council, and to, in some cases, maybe even assume regency if there's a crisis. It's just you're being told to follow orders until you get to the top, and then you have to start commanding, and yeah, you're fucked.
Yeah, I agree. It's completely flawed, right? Because even in the matter of protecting the king and his family, you need to be able to act and to make decisions that can have a huge impact and that are hugely important. So it's a bit ironic that he hasn't been trained to do that.
Is the idea that by sitting on the Kingsguard year after year, that by observing the great men of state making the decisions that you would learn?
Maybe, I don't know.
But it's very contingent, isn't it? I mean, that's really keeping your fingers crossed and hoping it works.
Yeah, because it has happened in history that the Kingsguard, the captain of the was appointed regent or had a bigger role politically than what we've seen in the current story, and I do not see Barristan in that role.
Do you think it's the Lord Commander in general rarely gets involved? Do you think Gerald Hightower would have gotten involved, and it's just Barristan who
I don't know really
has no interest and is a true warrior?
Maybe there's an unspoken agreement that you just hold your tongue at these meetings. You just observe. You don't say that much. But then why have the position in the first place? Why give him a seat? Yeah, I don't know actually.
Yeah, because it's not like he's in charge of all the troops. He's not like the Minister of War or the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. He's literally just the head of a personal bodyguard, right? Or in normal peace times, does he kind of have the role of Commander-in-Chief of the forces?
Well, frankly, I think it's not really that well defined. It depends a lot on the personalities of the King's Guards and what their king decides to do with them. So, and you have different instances where the King's Guard were mostly used to protect the royal family, and other kings chose to send them to war and to have them command the troops. So I think it's very very undefined. It's not a clear job.
I think generally they do. If you think Barristan led an attack on Old Wick in the Greyjoy Rebellion, Jaime led troops to the Riverlands. I think Gerald Hightower would have if Prince Rhaegar didn't lead them on the Trident.
Lewin was leading stuff in the Trident. He had the right or the left or something.
Well, he had the Dawn. Yeah, he had the Dornish troops. Was Lewin the Lord Commander though?
No,
he
Lord
wasn't.
Hightower was the
It was
Lord
it was
Commander.
Hightower.
No, yeah, but I think it makes sense, that these guys are expected to be are thought to be the best knights in the realm. So it's logical that they would also be commanding troops, and not only the Lord Commander but also the others.
I mean, yeah, we definitely don't see Boris Blount leading 10,000 men in the books for good reason.
No, yeah, but that also shows that the King's Guard now is not what it used to be, and that maybe someone like Barristan, who he's a great knight, but maybe he doesn't have what it takes to be Lord Commander. I don't know. Maybe in another era he wouldn't have become the Lord Commander. Like he would have stayed more of a King's Guard. Normal King's Guard for his career, and because all of the others are basically worse. So
It's put Barristan as at the top, or put Jaime at the end of Robert's Rebellion, and it's like, okay, it's pretty clear who's going at the top.
Well, it's interesting if Daenerys does ever get a 7, which is probably doubtful, outside of her co's. He's training up those knights, and they're from all sorts of different backgrounds. I don't think any of them are Westerosi. So he's going to have a sort of global Kingsguard for the first time.
Will Westerosi knights be that useful? Because in our own sort of world, the Arabian soldiers just made mincemeat of European ones because they didn't have any of the chivalry and honor system. They also were a lot more organized, and their lines tended not to break.
Against other Westerosi, I would say. But I think Daenerys' Essosi campaign that we'll see in Winds will just be her using her dragons and fucking shit up. So it probably won't even come to knights.
Yeah. What feels like, I just thought about the fact that after Robert's Rebellion, to me it looks a little bit like after the Dance of the Dragons. It seems like all of the good and loyal and commanding men have been killed one way or another because they were supporting one of the king's cause, and the immediate King's Guard after both of these civil war is not as great as it was before, because you don't have the same choice in men, and you don't have the same trust in men either.
Yeah, it's a definite downgrading.
Yeah, which makes sense, I think.
What do you all think of the peace deal that Dany struck, and whether it would have been able to sort of be sustained in a bit of counterfactual history if she hadn't buggered off on a dragon? I was going back to the old Stefan Sasse blog where he went through Dance with Dragons chapter by chapter, and it was interesting to me that he compared her piece to a sort of a Munich piece. So a piece that could never have held, and it was just a fig leaf. I was just wondering, it's a bit off topic, not off topic, but off chapter, but I was just wondering what you guys made of that, if anything.
Well, as I said, they left in a sort of volcanist clause so they could extract more later for it. So I think the parties involved, at least, were definitely committed to the peace and hoping to reform Daenerys to their way of thinking later.
The fact that Volantis launches its fleet sort of independent of the Dragon Pit and anything that happens there makes me think it is, as you say, it's like this temporary armistice, really, that might have not been able to hold, or maybe they just extract some even more concessions from Daenerys. A very tenuous piece. Like, it would have mollified Slaver's Bay, obviously, but the other areas like Tolos and Illyria and Mantaris, all these other places that depend on slavery and getting exports, would not have been satisfied.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
They take their history so seriously there as well, and the Valyrians traditionally dominating the Giscari is also something that they wouldn't be able to forget, and they'd have to kill these dragons and show their power.
Yeah, cultural aspects that just don't mix, which is ironic because Stefan Sasse and other people like the guy who writes Race for the Iron Throne speculates that the Giscari culture we see now is probably more Valyrian than it is Giscari because it was conquered so many times. But yeah, they are the Harpy's sons, as they go on about.
Okay. Anything else on this chapter?
Miss Sunday's kind of creepy. I personally don't think there's anything weird about her, but I know others do, so I just thought I'd bring this up. She, like, sneaks up on Barristan.
But do you think she's creepy in a sort of, like, a conspiratorial way, or just in a...
No, just as a wise beyond her years child.
But that's not surprising given what she's seen, I think.
Yeah, but she also sometimes seems like a sort of changeling in how she's written. Like how she just appears out of nowhere and so forth. How she knows so much. She seems to know everything that's going on.
Like a faceless man, you know?
You can't unsee it. Once you imagine her as creepy, you can't unsee it.
Well, the leader of the UK army died in the fighting pit, so maybe that was her.
Okay, well, if that's it, then maybe we should move on to the next chapter. So after Barristan 1, we skip over a chapter to Tyrion 11, and this takes place 2 days later on July 9th.
Yeah, and that's me, I believe.
Bonjour, Marie.
Salut, Matt. He made it.
Perfect
Well
timing.
Okay, so we have Tyrion 11. It's a short summary, and I wrote that 2 weeks ago, so here we go. So, Yeton, Tyrion and Penny's master, is dying of the pale mare. Nurse is dead already, and we learn later that Tyrion actually poisoned him. Tyrion, Penny, and the other favorites of Yeton are taking care of him, and Tyrion volunteers to go get water from a well with Penny. He manages to get the slave soldiers to release Jorah to help them carry enough water, and so at the well, slaves are gossiping about Dany and whether she's dead or not. Tyrion says that they never found a body, and he remembers the pit and the moment he almost revealed himself to Dany, but didn't because he saw Barristan. He knows that they were supposed to die in the pit, devoured by lions, which Tyrion finds hilariously ironic, but Penny doesn't know. On their way back from the well, and despite Penny saying it's not the way and they must not try to escape, Tyrion walks right to the Second Son's camp, saying to Jorah that his 5 games of Savas with the sellsword were enough to understand how he thinks. They are brought to Broadbent Plum, and Tyrion proceeds to convince him to hire the 3 of them in his company, and apparently succeeds. And that's it.
All I want to say is that George uses the word breach clout. And I just love that word, breach clout. It's like the word hullabaloo. It's a word that's just really fun to say. And I was just thinking, like, where does George find these words? I just love it. And also, like, good dragon killing knowledge. Chekhovian is this Chekhov's dragon killing knowledge that we're seeing here. Do we think Tyrion's going to kill a dragon at some point? I don't know. I really enjoyed this chapter. It felt like Tyrion was back. Like, he's playing Ben Plum so well. And we've seen him really go off the rails in dance, and it just feels like he's back to Tyrion, and it just really makes me want TWOW because we're going to have Tyrion at the top of his game. But it was a joy to read in so many ways, both from the word choice level to the macro character development level. I think George is setting up Tyrion to kill a dragon. You heard it here first.
Ooh.
He may well be a dragon rider, but I think he'll be a dragon rider who, like me, thinks dragons are stupid and kills one.
Oh, I don't think so.
Didn't he read like one of the last scrolls in like the Citadel about?
Yeah, he's fascinated with dragons.
He just has knowledge. He has dragon killing knowledge. I don't think George is telling us, alerting us to this Chekhovian dragon killing knowledge. It's Chekhov's gun. If you know that a dragon dies through the eye or the tongue or whatever it is, surely that's going to come in helpful. I mean, if we end these books, do you expect dragons to be alive at the end of these books? If we end these books with dragons alive, then I'm going to be pissed.
This is magic's last gasp of breath before it vanishes from the world, and the dragons are intimately tied to magic, so they have to
Yes.
go.
Good. Excellent. Well,
So, if there are no dragons, then do the White Walkers still exist? Because they're still magical, right?
Oh, they also go. They also go permanently. It'll be
Just-
like a
Total attrition.
fire and ice meet, and then they extinguish one another. And the seasonal balance is returned. That's also an important thing that will happen.
yes. Make it so.
Yeah, George, you hear this?
Oh, dear.
Why did Tyrion hesitate when he saw Barristan?
Because he
What
didn't
did-
know.
what-
He doesn't
what-
know Barristan's reaction. Is Barristan going to be a friend? Is he going to shop him? Does he consider him an enemy? Does he believe that Tyrion's a murderer? Why would Tyrion assume that Barristan would think kindly of him at this point?
I think Tyrion sees Barristan as this guy who doesn't really think. He like everything we described before, and so he's gonna immediately know him as a traitor, as someone who's not necessarily good for Dany, and would speak ill of Tyrion. I think that's actually fair. I don't believe Barristan would be very inclined to trust Tyrion and to say to Dany that she should trust him.
But he was dismissed before Tyrion became Hand.
For sure, but he knows. He knows
Guilty by
Tyrion
association.
only as a Lannister and not a very. Tyrion. Even though Tywin hates Tyrion, it doesn't mean he's not associated to him by everyone else. I mean, in the eyes of everyone else, you know.
Are they
there's-
aware he's killed Tywin as well as obviously assuming he killed Joffrey?
I think they probably are, but it doesn't change much, you know.
I think he even thinks in one of his chapters, this just makes me less trustworthy if I'm a kinslayer and a kingslayer in their eyes.
Absolutely. But it still feels like this missed moment, you know? Like if he had spoken right there and then, what would have happened?
Oh my goodness!
Daenerys
Yeah.
goes, what? And then the pit of Daznak drowns him out. And then it's just like, oh, what was that?
Yeah.
Really?
Perhaps, I don't know. But I'm just thinking the pit is not the best place to make your pitch. You want to be in the court of Daenerys with a private audience.
Yes.
It's just like trying to talk in a nightclub, and it's just a lot of noise is lost.
What are you saying? Yeah.
Good point. Well made. Otherwise, I thought a fairly straightforward chapter insofar as it just shows him back to his wily ways.
Yeah, he really is firing on all cylinders. Like, for him the fact that he says the dragons were fond of you, so he obviously has to know about dragon blood and what that does to dragons, and the fact that Brown Ven Plum is a descendant of, who is it, Viserys Plum? Well, not really, but Elena Targaryen, and most likely Aegon the Unworthy. So he's putting these two obscure things together in something that really probably makes an impression on Brown Ven Plum. It's very clever.
I thought the fact that he understands that he was supposed to die in the pit, that the lions were supposed to be set against them, is just horrifying. And like he keeps it from Penny because it's what he does with her. He's protecting her innocence. But that's creepy. I mean, not the fact that he's keeping that from Penny, but just going through that in his mind, and the moment he understands they were supposed to die, it's fairly awful.
Agree.
There was an interesting exchange at the well between all the slaves, and one of the older ones is like, oh, I'm proud that I'm a slave. I wouldn't take the freedom. And Tyrion thinks about this like it's how manipulative and enticing the chains become. But I thought just now there's a link between Barristan, because they're both old people, and this guy's probably been a slave his entire life. And so if he gets freedom, he basically has to admit that all of his life up until now has been like wasted opportunity. So I can totally understand how he justifies that he's better off being a slave.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's why it's so hard to accept freedom, right?
Anything else in this chapter?
There's-
I mean, we
there's
don't.
descriptions of this is pretty ancillary now, but Yezen like squirting out shit everywhere, and it's just disgusting.
Yeah, I don't need to read that. like just
We all
not
know
necessary.
what diarrhea is. You don't have
Yeah.
to elaborate.
yeah.
And he will elaborate when we get to Danny's chapter.
Yeah, exactly. It's unnecessary.
Okay, so after Tyrion 11, we skip over 5 chapters to the confusingly titled, depending on how you're counting them, Victarion 1/Victarion 2. This takes place a day later on July 10th, and it is me with the chapter summary because no one else wanted it. And it's
Yeah,
just,
enjoy this Victarion. I've had to take all the others.
it's just so, I had forgotten just how grim. It's just, one is once again shocked by just what a complete and utter shit this man is. So here's my not at all facetious chapter summary, which is very short. Victarion, arguably the biggest dumbass in all of A Song of Ice and Fire, continues sailing to Mereen, complete with his firearm, with Moquaro and the apparent protection of 2 gods. What he doesn't have is mercy. He captures various ships and proves himself to be brutal, misogynistic, and homophobic with their inhabitants. He also has Moquaro wear Greyjoy colours, completing his Darth Maul look. We also get the backstory on yet another unsuccessful Greyjoy rebellion, this time by Dagon against presumably Eris. We can get into that in the discussion. Despite being quite stupid, Victarion does in fact realise that Euron gave him Dragonbinder as a mortal trap, but Moquaro tells him he can claim it by blood, whatever that means. Presumably he can have someone else blow it and die and he can have the power over it. So that is obviously, very important information to end the chapter on. But otherwise, it's just this endless parade of Victarion capturing people in his head, thinking he's this noble lord who is combining and almost creating a new religion that combines his piss-poor understanding of what the Drowned God religion is and what the god of Moquaro is. And he thinks, oh, but I've given these women as salt wives to these men, and I'm great, and they're just getting raped, and the whole thing is just a parade of vile bigotry and stupidity. And while it's easy to laugh at it, and in some ways you can read it as laughable, it's actually just horrific. And that is my chapter summary.
Isn't that just most religion?
Well, yes, but on top of that, you just have this terrible, terrible mindset, who's just not questioning anything that he does. He just thinks, I've got to kill these people. I have to drown all these boy whores. I got to burn. At least the boy whores got to be drowned quickly. Like, I feel sorry for the 7 beautiful maidens who had to be burnt alive.
Yeah, that was terrible. Ugh. Again, completely agree with you, Bina. It's horrifying, this whole chapter.
I feel you really do have to just read it as black comedy, because reading it straight is just so depressing. So my 2 favorite bits from this chapter. The first one is where he takes the slaves and then he just makes them rowers on his boats, and he goes, the Dragon Queen frees slaves and so do I, and they can all go row my boats now. And he's like, yeah, good on you, Victarion. You're doing great. I thought that was funny. And then the second is when the merchant laughs at him and is like, hey, the Dothraki Sea, it's not sea, you idiot. And so then Victarion instantly chokes this guy, without saying a word. He has to insta-choke him until he dies. Now, to Victarion, I'm sure he thinks this makes him look like a badass and cool, but to anyone who's paying attention, this is just demonstrating that Victarion is very self-conscious about being laughed at and called stupid.
Yeah.
And
This
He
is like
reminds
a
me a lot
Force
of-
Awakens Kylo Ren.
I was just going to say, it reminds me of Kylo Ren. He thinks he's being all badass and dressing like his grandpa and like force choking people, and that's like cool, but really just shows him to be a petulant teenager with like complete insecurity and just being an idiot. One of my favorite comments, I was on the Stefan Sasse blog, someone called Brett posted a comment back in September 2011, which shows you how long ago this book was written, where he says, I found the Victarion chapters to be darkly hilarious. In a book with many characters struggling with personal issues and crises, Victarion is this lone, single-minded psycho with an absurdly straightforward approach to everything. Moquaro's god can heal. Sacrifice to him too. Daenerys is married. Make her a widow. But one mustn't laugh, because ultimately what he does is horrible. So it is a nice contrast with Barristan, though, because Barristan is so pained at what he does, and Victarion just... It must
Well,
he has
they-
no self-awareness,
It must be
but he's still as miserable.
It must be beautiful to go through life like this, right? With just no self-doubt, with no anxiety, just always convinced of one's rightness. Yeah.
Well, these
Yeah,
two are
man.
going to meet
No, to
very
think that
soon.
he's the... Sorry.
I was just going to say, they're going to meet very soon.
Yeah, and to think he's just like the pathetic understudy of his brother Euron, who's going to be like the big bad and wins.
I think it's all going to be brilliant, and it's just another reason why I really want TWOW, especially when we get to the next reread episodes, post-show TWOW discussion. It's going to be the mother of all confrontations. What did you all think of the bit of history? I was thinking of you, Michael, when I was reading this as a sort of lore master of this podcast, that this idea that we get this other Greyjoy rebellion. Who is the king? Have people figured this out?
Yeah, I think it is Eris, because this is actually happening in the time of the Dunk and Egg books, The Sworn Sword
Isn't it
and Mystery
Maekar?
Knight.
What? Say that again, Matt?
Isn't it Maekar?
No,
Or
no,
his
that's
father is?
after Eris dies, and Maekar
Oh.
is like, Egg is much older.
Oh.
But yeah, so
Eris-
Eris is the king at that point, and they make mention of him, Dagon Greyjoy, the Red Kraken. And Victarion thinks there was a weak king who sat upon the Iron Throne, and that's Eris to a T, or Eris the First. But yeah, it doesn't end well for Dagon. I think one of his sex slaves ends up killing him or something. So he has like a tragically ironic death.
I
Oh
don't think-
yeah, that's
I-
exactly it. It's no, it's earlier though.
It's Dalton.
This could be another one, yeah.
Yeah, it's another one. It's another one because it's in Fire and Blood, and Fire and Blood doesn't
Yeah.
go that far.
No.
No. I thought like the Lannisters and the Starks teamed up against him.
Yeah, I think in the next Dunk and Egg they'll kind of dig into that a bit more. Dagon.
Yeah, She-Wolves of Winterfell. The Lord Stark that we're going to meet is dying of his wounds that he sustained fighting against him.
Is he this? He's the Stark with like is it Ed Weil? Or am I just pulling that
I
out
don't go
somewhere?
through the family trees because I just find those boring as hell.
Really, I love family trees. It's
I
like
like my
love
own.
maps and
Like myself, but these Stark ones where like every character is Sansa or Arya
Oh, such
or
a great
Rickard.
Victarion-esque comment. I like my own.
But
That's
yeah,
it,
even the
that's
extended
Victarion.
Targaryen tree that gets confusing very quickly.
yeah, but that's what's fun about it. But so I think it's weird because Victarion at some point, like at the beginning when you meet him, he's not pleasant. But the more you learn about like what his brother did to him and what was his childhood like, you kind of want to understand a few things about him. But then you get this chapter and you're like, what was the point of building a slightly more interesting character if he doesn't make anything of that?
Yeah, why humanize him?
Yeah. If
I
there's
interpret
no...
that as like
Yeah.
he just like we all get laughed at when we're kids, and Victarion just can't respond to it in any constructive way, even now. Yeah, zero sympathy is what I have for him.
Agree.
I mean-
So they mention the horn. Makoro points out the horn. Only blood can master it. And so I think the idea is if you bless the horn with your blood, the dragons are loyal to you regardless of who blows it. I think that's the idea. And so some people have proposed like it's definitely not going to be Victarion getting a dragon. This is going to go wrong somehow. And so maybe the Dusky Woman, who some people think is an agent of Euron, will in fact, I don't know, she'll bring out a vial of Euron's blood. And so the dragons get charmed, but they get charmed and come under Euron's control.
Yeah,
Maybe
let's be clear. Whoever gets control of this, it's not going to be Victarion.
It's
is it?
not old Vicky. Some people also think that he's so stupid he's going to blow the horn, even though he's been
Even
told
though he
that
knows, or maybe
he'll
he
be like,
thinks
fuck it, I can do this.
maybe he thinks he'll get resurrected because if Makoro could give him a firearm, he'll just become like a fire being. I don't know.
That's so
He'll just
stupid.
be on fire.
That would be very stupid, like worse than actual Victarion, current Victarion level.
It's like one of those joke deaths in those text adventures where like you choose to like walk into the dragon's mouth or whatever.
Yeah, I
It's
see.
like,
I
wow,
see
you
what
were
you
that
mean.
stupid. You took that death.
Yeah.
Did
So-
anyone play King's Quest in the 90s? Those cool adventure games?
I don't
die.
think
Oh, one day I'll find someone who did.
so.
Oh, that sounded so plaintive.
Yeah,
One
I've been
day,
searching.
someone will understand me.
Yeah.
So the horn will just pretty much attract a dragon, and he'll get his ass smoked, right?
Yes.
There's no way.
The question is whether the dragon gets bound to someone else in the process.
From this distance, could Euron? I mean, so then what? The dragon would just like
It flies all the way
straight
to
to
town,
Westeros.
basically.
and land on Paxter Redwine's ship.
I think it's just very odd. It almost like intimates that dragons are somehow can be remote controlled over great distances.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't buy that it's gonna be bound to Euron in any way straight away. Maybe he won't even use it yet. Or do you think he has to use it in this battle upcoming?
Oh, this horn's getting blown. It's Chekhov's horn.
He'll show you his big horn, but he won't let you blow it until A Dream of Spring.
Hey now. Wonder if he tries to blow the horn and the wall falls down.
Well, that's the horn of winter that Euron will be blowing. But that's again, that's for the winds of winter. So let's get that out,
but
George.
who knows? Maybe Euron like mixed his horns up. Like, I don't know, gave away the wrong one.
That
Yeah.
sounds like it.
How certain is he in his like horn lore?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, if Euron can blow a horn from Old Town, and when Victarion does it, maybe it will have an effect on the dragons if the warders come down from Old Town.
Well, the thing with the dragon horn is the dragons have to hear it. It has to be in the dragon's hearing. And I feel that the horn of winter is a bit more abstract magical. A wall doesn't have ears.
Yeah,
Or
A
does
magic wall does.
that you know of.
It's got a face.
It does have a
Yeah, it's
mouth.
got a tree in the middle of it that opens up and talks to people.
We truly are in the realms of the absurd. I
Maybe
feel
the tree needs to blow the horn.
I feel maybe we should move on at this point. Maybe that.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, folks. Okay, so let's close out the main part of this episode and we'll tackle our TWOW preview chapter in the after show for people who don't want to be spoiled. Does anyone have any forthcoming podcasts that they want to pimp out? I mean, I'm assuming Mandalorian's going to happen at some point, but the scheduling just seems to have sort of fallen a bit by the wayside.
I want to hear The Mandalorian. Churn that one out.
I think maybe we'll do a You season 2 episode at some point.
I'm halfway through the second season of You, and I'd be happy to join that.
Yeah, me too. Same. So Bina, I remember like we did 1 or 2 episodes there, maybe 2, on Anne with an E. Are you thinking about doing season 3 as well?
Yeah, for sure. I binged You, and I'm now binging Messiah. So when I've done those, I'll binge Anne with an E season 3, and then
Yeah, okay. Either.
yeah, I haven't started it. There's just so much good TV out, and I wasn't even going to watch Messiah, and then White Raven was like, it's insane. I just watched it all, and it is really good. I think You is just splendiferous, though. That's just stunning. And then I just downloaded the 4-hour Gettysburg movie from 1991 because I'm in this whole Civil War obsession right now. So there's just no time. There's no time. But yeah, we should definitely do one with an E.
Okay.
Anything else on the go, guys?
Maybe The Expanse at some point. There's been interest expressed, but I have myself yet to see the last season. So
Hopefully, if more people read Devolution, Max Brooks's new book, we can do that because Greg and I want to talk about it.
Cool. And actually, I'll put out a general plea in the Khal Wadege style that I've yet to find another person who loves the Juice, and it just wrapped its final season, third and final season. So we've never podcasted on it because I've never found anyone else who was into it. But if anyone out
Juice?
there, the Juice, DEEUCE.
Oh, yeah, I watched the first 2 seasons of that. They
Yeah.
referenced my hometown in the first season.
Cool. Well, if anyone out there in the ether listening, even if you don't normally Vok, wants to come talk about the Juice with me, please do, because I have thoughts. And they need to be expressed. So with that, I just want to thank Matt, Mary, Michael, Noah, and Jock for joining me in this episode of Vok. And thank you all for listening. Bye, everyone.
bye. Thanks, Bina.
Fake outro, because now
Yeah.
in the after show we're going to talk about the Arianne chapter. And before we even get in to the chapter summary by Noah, why did you you grabbed this, so are you really into Arianne? What's the story?
I was supposed to do Arianne 1 on the last one and accidentally did Arianne 2. And Varley had to step in and do a wonderful rendition of Arianne 1.
Okay, so it's basically just sort of
welcome.
mixing up the horns effectively in a Victarion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, my stupidity, not any not any desire to do this chapter.
Okay, well, the fact that you've already done it means that now this chapter recap is going to be absolutely first class.
I actually haven't touched it since last week.
It's still Arianne 2.
It's not Arianne 3. After crossing the Sea of Dawn, Arianne and her forgettable ensemble continue on to Griffin's Roost. Whilst getting ripped off of horses, they are told unsettling accounts of what pirates and the Golden Company have been doing to a part of Westeros that was otherwise untouched by the war. En route to Mistwood, they stay in a cave where the children of the forest resided, and Weirwoods too. Bloodraven. As they reach the castle, they're greeted by two sellswords who take them to Lady Mertens, who cheerfully discusses more of the Golden Company's recent crimes. On the way to Griffin's Roost, sellsword number 2 accompanies them part of the way and lets slip that Jon Con is off taking Storm's End. After several more days of camping and travelling, they finally reach to the Roost and are greeted by the ever-creepy Lyseno Mar, who discusses dragons and the difference between Daenerys and Aegon. Finally, we reach Howden Half-Maester, and it seems that Jon Con has been very busy and has taken Storm's End, and they discuss plans to send Arianne to treat with him.
So I prefer this chapter to the first one. I honestly think he should have just started with this one. But yeah.
Yeah, a combination would have definitely...
Like, I know they're different geographic regions and stuff, but a travelogue's a travelogue, you know?
Yeah, it's a long way to travel in one chapter, but not a lot comes from each.
I mean, in fairness, maybe George will combine them. I mean, just because he's published them as TWOW previews doesn't mean he's not still going to further edit them or change them, right?
George, if you're listening, combine these chapters.
That's my issue with a lot of people not even wanting to read these chapters, because it sounds like he scrapped a lot of his original TWOW stuff. So I don't even think we'll see many of these chapters in the finished product. It'll be interesting to see what he replaces them with.
I like all the various characters we meet in this chapter. It's nice. The little mercenaries, Lyseno Mar, he seems an interesting guy, and Lady Mertens. She had the cool line, if you see John Connington, say I knew his mother and she'd be ashamed of him. It made me laugh.
Yeah, that's a good line. I think this chapter is actually interesting to me. It's different parts of Westeros that we haven't necessarily seen, and those parts of the Westeros have not seen what the Westerlands, the Riverlands have seen. So it's the way they see this invasion is quite different, I think. And to see Arianne maneuver in this is interesting to me. I'm not sure I agree with her decision to go, but I agree with her thinking that she doesn't really have a choice. They're going to take her there anyway.
Yeah, they're not letting her go. She's half guest, half hostage at this point.
For sure. Do we believe that they have taken Storm's End?
I thought it's such a weird, just let it slip. Oh, by the way, we've taken Storm's End.
Yeah, and it's such a weird thing to have in a preview chapter as well.
This ultimate siege or whatever trickery they used to get it. I'm sure in Arianne 3 that will be explained, but I just really want to know how they got it.
Well, you'd expect to see it in Jon Con's chapter, right?
Yeah,
maybe,
so.
Yeah.
So yeah, it does feel a little out. It feels like there's a Jon Con missing that would have tied it all together.
Yeah, because the last one in Dance was Aegon saying, I'm going to lead the attack on Storm's End, and then the next mention of it we get is this chapter, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think even in Kevin's chapter it hasn't...
Oh, yeah. But even still, Kevin's chapter, Mace is like, yeah, I'll deal with that after the trial. Like, I'll retake...
Once I see my daughter's innocence proven.
Yeah.
And there's actually a line right at the end that Mace Tyrell is marching an army down to Storm's End. So you can kind of sort of interpret that as to mean that Marjorie's had her trial and been proven innocent. But that's a kind of a stretch.
Well, you'd expect her to be proven innocent. Really.
Yeah. Unless it's like an ultimate kangaroo court. But if she's already gotten her head chopped off for treason or whatever, I imagine Mace Tyrell is pissing off back to High Garden. But that's just my presumption.
Burning the set down, probably.
Yeah, you don't think that High Garden won't just destroy King's Landing?
He'd certainly kill the High Sparrow. Buffoon he may be, but with 10,000 men behind him, he'll feel a lot stronger.
Also, something that I really want to see, maybe summarized in another Arianne chapter, is when the Golden Company meets this army, because the Golden Company has elephants, obviously, and they've got this variety. They've got infantry, they've got horses, they've got archers. It's like, I think that the Knights of the Reach are just going to get obliterated, and Mace Tyrell's probably dying.
Yeah, good to see the Golden Company in action and be effectual. I really want to see that they live up to their badass reputation. I think they found their elephants, Jock.
Oh, did they? I missed that.
Where did they lose it? Where did they
A lot of them
misplace it?
didn't wash up onto shore. They got stranded on the stepstones or something. Harry Strickland wouldn't stop complaining about them.
Yeah.
But that was in dance proper. I thought in maybe last Arianne's chapter or this one, they mentioned and they have elephants with them too or something. So they kind of confirmed that they finally got all their shit together and they're kind of consolidated with whoever landed.
Yeah, they're at full capacity.
Do they all wash up on Estermont or something? Why do I want to think all the elephants ended up?
Elephants in the Rainwood.
Stepstones as well.
Do you think we'll ever get to see Davos's wife and keep? I thought Arianne might stumble across, his lands or something. I thought that would be a neat little thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you think we'll ever get to see that? Because this is a part, as Marie said, we've not seen any firsthand in the Stormlands.
Yeah, now they're going straight to Storm's Landing, so I guess not. Or Storm's Landing.
Maybe there'll be a throwaway line of Lady Seaworth was taken as a hostage, and Arianne speaks to her, and then she moves on.
Or even Tarth to see Brienne's dad, because we don't know much about the kind of guy he is either at all. It's quite a bit of a question mark.
Apart from the fact that he did eventually stop trying to set her up and let her train, which seems in the context of these times very forward thinking.
Yeah, he sounds like a good guy. I'm not sure he is much more interesting than that. We don't have to meet extensively everyone who is mentioned at some point in the books.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this isn't Star Wars.
Ooh, sick burn.
Well, but would you rather meet Davos's wife or Lady Mertens?
Lady Mertens was cool.
Yeah, I don't think Davos's wife has anything to do. Doesn't Davos say she's heavy set with a couple of younger kids still back at home?
Yeah.
And she's just a mess of a person after losing half of her children, and her husband comes in riding on a unicorn with a human hand. I don't know.
Interesting world building detail with the Children of the Forest. It obviously makes sense that they lived in caves. I think this was mentioned in the World of Ice and Fire. But yeah, they carve faces into them and do stuff. That was just nice.
And the weirwoods as well. But were there actual weirwoods or were they just stumps?
It wasn't weirwood roots growing into the cave.
So they'd all been chopped down and they were just remnants.
Here in the summary it says even that here and there are wild weirwood. Okay, so there's some in just the forest.
It's a three-eyed raven's winter cave. Goes up north during the summers and comes down to the south in winters.
Licino Ma, or however you say his name, I thought he was funny. He seemed to be fine to be mistaken as a woman, and it made me wonder, just like Varys and Laris Clubfoot, if the Master of Whispers in all of these positions has to be effeminate, and they have to play up to a role.
Well, I think in this society, wouldn't they just be unsuspecting and can kind of weave in between both groups? So listen in with the women, listen in with the men, and no one really looks at them as a threat as a part of either group.
Yeah, seeming like you're not a big deal when in reality you're probably the most dangerous person of the company.
Don't you think it's also some kind of Essos thing that you have this kind of character people in Essos coming from Essos? And we don't really see that. Yeah, we don't really see them in Westeros population, which I don't know what it's saying about George and the way he writes. Essos in general, it's a bit cliche, but
yeah, it sort of bleeds into Orientalism if you start introducing too many of these foppish sort of men. But we don't know enough of Lys, I guess, to really... I was going to say the Golden Company is a good counterexample, but they're basically Westerosi influence.
Or at least Westerosi in the way they're brought up, even if they are not necessarily born on Westeros.
So we're all agreed that Arianne's going to make an alliance, and Dawn will join Aegon?
Sealed with marriage, yes.
If she doesn't, what is the point?
Yeah, it's not very interesting if she's like, all right, that was cool. I'm going to go back to Doran now, and we'll see
Yeah.
you later.
Well, maybe she could be as cautious as Doran.
Now, I'll tell you what's going to happen. Let me tell you. So,
Oh, boy.
her and Aegon will meet, and they'll be like, that other person's hot. I want some of that. But then they'll be talking, and Aegon will say, oh, they're keeping my hand open for Daenerys when she comes over. And then Arianne will be like, hold up. We sent Quentyn to marry Daenerys, and in her mind, they're going to be married and coming over. So she'll be like, I know, you and I need to get together. And John Connington will be like, no, I hate the Dornish. But then Aegon will be like, I'm my own man now. You gotta suck it. And they'll marry in the Sept of Baelor, and the High Sparrow is gonna love them.
You should write the next book, Michael.
Maybe I will.
The end. You might have
Some of that fan fiction you read is mine.
I like it.
Yeah, except for the fact that Aegon is like, what, 14?
He's John's age?
16? He may be 16.
16. Okay. Well, yeah, he's still a bit of a kid, but
He's a guy. It's fine.
no, I'm not questioning the morals of it. I'm questioning whether Arianne would actually be interested or not.
Does it matter?
I don't know. I just think like she's the kind of woman who to me would be more interested in slightly older men, or at least her age,
I think
because she wants experience. I don't know.
I think she'd marry who she wants to and take as a lover, someone who interests
Alright,
her,
yeah.
she's more attracted to.
Yeah, apparently.
For sure. I think she would still find that alliance, of course, okay, because she would be queen, but but she might not be like, ooh, this guy is sexy, let's get married, and maybe a bit more political than that.
I'm thinking Aegon will be in full. I'm the
I'm
boss.
a Targaryen.
And
Yeah.
Arianne will just be like drooling all over that.
Probably, yeah.
Confidence
blonde
is
hair.
sexy.
I'm having issues with the way we all see Arianne, and I get that that's also how George is portraying her, but I don't see. I mean, when I read her chapters, she doesn't seem that bad to me, and it's afterwards when I discuss it with you guys, and I'm not really happy with that. I would love her to be more convincing and actually like powerful.
I think the problem
I
is
agree with
her
you, Mereen.
actions are good and interesting. It's just the way George writes her physically, which is very demeaning. So I don't think it's necessarily us bringing that. I think it's George not making his mind up. And he does that a little bit with Dany too. Like if you just look at them as military political players who are taking part in plot, fascinating. And then he can't, resist throwing in a comment about her duskiness or, whatever bollocks he chooses to go with. So I think the contradiction comes from him, straightforwardly.
I think in this chapter you have like when she's talking to Chains and she's being politically astute. She's not saying anything that she doesn't want to say, and she's like touching Chains a little bit and talking and laughing and basically waiting for Chains to have a slip of the tongue and reveal this stuff. So like I agree that she is politically minded, but she's just incorporating her sex appeal into how she's doing it, and that's. Again, you can put on George for good or ill.
Well, I think that's two separate things, right? You can write a woman using her sexuality for political ends without yourself demeaningly sexualizing her, and I think there's a bit of both going on here.
Yeah, I would agree.
But isn't that just the same thing that how he's written Cersei this entire time? Except Arianne seems a little more politically apt.
Cersei feels like a deliberate deconstruction of like the evil, sexy queen. So I can see 100% what George is doing there. Arianne feels like the dusky, exotic princess that George is also trying to tackle as a trope. But whether he is succeeding 100% of the time or indulging in Orientalism remains to be seen. I guess.
Like her duskiness implies her sexuality rather than it being a conscious decision or something like that.
Yeah, and the fact that she is introduced via Eros Oakheart with all of his wonderful views of the Dornish, the hot spices are making her horny and all that crap. The way you construct the presentation, it's important.
Yeah, I agree. That's well said.
So I've been thinking of Arianne's ultimate trajectory. I've thought for quite a while now that she needs to survive to the end game and be one of the survivors, because if she just dies in the Inferno of King's Landing, which I also think is going to happen, her plot also will lead to nothing. So do you guys
It'll
have
be
any
just
thoughts?
like her brothers.
Yeah, and we all loved that, didn't we?
Quentin's alive.
He's not.
I do believe Dawn will come to nothing, and I think sort of Arianne will do so in a slightly more. I think Quentin is the warm-up act for Arianne, but I think Arianne will take us into very interesting spaces as a POV on the way there, which Quentin certainly did not. Any more from anyone else?
Okay, just that Arianne was told by her father why the Stormlands had more storms. So does Dorne have a sort of Arabian Golden Age going on where they have like meteorologists and stuff? That could be useful in a war.
Oh yeah, that was interesting. They're debating with the Septon, and the Septon's like, oh, it was because they stole Eleni, the Queen of the Seas, and her father has been angry ever since, and that's why Storm's End had to be rebuilt 7 times, and all that crap. And like the Maester is like, nah, man, you what are you smoking? But I feel like this is something that is probably has a historical basis, like something like this happened between the original Storm King, but that's just my opinion.
Do we think there are loyalists that will rise up and join up with Aegon outside of Dorne?
The Tarleys.
Yeah, Randall Tarley's been thrown around, but that's more because he has every right to be pissed with Mace for basically winning all his battles and getting none of the credit.
But yeah, the Golden Company has the line, even now we may have some friends in the Reach, and that's where most of the support for the Golden Company came from. So I could see some of that. And also, if you some really nerdy person has gone through Renly's camp, Renly's war camp, and if you count the number of Stormland houses, a number of them are absent. So it would seem that some of the Stormlanders were uncommitted, and so maybe they will commit to Aegon.
Or weren't most of them the ones that weren't with Stannis? Or went with Stannis afterwards, after then they died? I thought they were just sort of waiting for those two to get out, find over for Victor.
I think Stannis got the people that were in the war camps, but it's not actually said if he got any new people. Certainly not the Swans, but I kind of imagine there are some lords that still have their knights that they can pull out for the right person.
I think Mathis Rowan is a good shout for who's their friends in Westeros, because they're famed loyalists of the Targaryens, right? Throughout history.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yes. No, you're right, because they were red dragons all the way. They never fought for the black dragons. But of course, yes, Aegon is Targaryen, end quotes.
Yeah, I'm not sure until Daenerys comes. I'm not sure if people will really distinguish, because obviously the Golden Company famously always support the Blackfires, and now they're supporting Aegon. Well, Aegon in Targaryen in name at least. So I think whoever used to be a loyalist, regardless of the dragon, will flock to him, right?
Yeah, I agree. I also don't think the Blackfire thing of the Golden Company, I think that's something that's been lost over the centuries. They don't give a fuck. I know a lot of people actually think that Aegon is a secret Blackfire, but I am a staunch opposer of this theory.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
My primary thing
why
that
would it matter?
Why would Aegon being a Blackfire matter? I agree.
For either way, if he's a Blackfire, it's still a Targaryen, kinda.
So one reason, I think, is that Aegon has to be disproven as a lie. He is the Mama's dragon. And the way that I think this will happen is Daenerys will offer a dragon to him, and he just won't be able to tame it because he doesn't have any dragon blood. And that will conclusively demonstrate, I guess he was a fake.
You think Daenerys is going to offer someone her dragon?
She will contemptuously offer it. She'll be like, oh, you think you're the real deal? Okay, here's Rhaegal.
I mean, it backfires if he is, and then he has a dragon, though, doesn't it? It's
yeah. But again, that's why he's not a Blackfire. And also, if Varys as a character is much less interesting if he's supporting a Blackfire instead of just the perfect prince.
You think he's less interesting? I don't think.
Yes, because the whole thing that makes Varys so very interesting is he's not doing it for a bloodline. He's not a secret whatever. He's not doing it for the family. He's genuinely, in his mind, in it for the realm. And so, yeah, Aegon being a Blackfire nullifies that a bit.
Well, then is it a triple bluff and Illyrio's not telling Varys that he's a Blackfire?
I think that Illyrio and Varys are too close as friends for any of this triple switcheroo to have happened. I think that's...
But I mean, sure, Varys may be in it for the greater good and the good of the realm, but what's Illyrio in it for?
Illyrio's in it
That's the explanation.
because Aegon's his son.
Yeah, because Sarah wasn't Blackfire.
No, Sarah was not a Blackfire. Sarah was just some whore.
Whoa!
I mean,
bronze
was a
next to
sex
his
worker
bed.
from Lys. I didn't mean... Oh my god.
Jesus.
My point being, there was nothing special about Sarah's blood. She was not the last descendant of the Blackfires, in my opinion.
No, Aegon is.
Michael, you've been leading these groups too closely. It's starting to evolve.
But yeah, we shall see. That is a very popular theory, so I fight it wherever I see it.
I don't think it will be like it will ever be remembered as a Blackfire, but I think it probably will be revealed by Varys to possibly Tyrion one day in a little reunion or something. Who knows? Just a little slip of the tongue, not smoking gun or anything, but even how Illyrio says it, red or black, dragon is a dragon.
I think Illyrio is going to have a slip of the tongue when Daenerys confronts him and starts burning him alive or whatever, and I think we'll have some sort of revelation there, maybe at the end of TWOW. But yeah, we will see.
Why would Daenerys burn him alive?
Because Tyrion is going to say, oh, hey, Dany, so Illyrio actually had Aegon as the main deal all this time. Like you didn't really matter. You were just a distraction. It sounded more convincing when I thought of it. But yeah, anyway, Tyrion's going to turn Dany against Illyrio, and Dany's going to come to Pentos pissed off. She also needs to give Pentos to the Tattered Prince. So,
yeah. God damn it. So, even after Mereen's done with, she's not leaving for Westeros. She has to go down to Pentos now?
She's going from Mereen to Volantis to Pentos. And...
She can't fly in front of her army.
But no, it'll be cool. There'll be a cool character confrontation between her and Illyrio. It won't be like a nothing chapter.
I agree. I think that would be a nice confrontation, really, because the last time they met was before she was married for the wedding. So.
Illyrio gave her the fucking dragon's eggs. How's she gonna fucking get mad at him now?
He didn't think they were gonna hatch. No one thought they were gonna hatch.
Yeah.
He
doesn't matter.
The bus. He was I thought she was gonna get she was gonna die on the Dothraki Sea. Yeah, she's gonna think about it and be like, yeah, Illyrio ain't no friend of mine.
But he did send her Barristan.
That's right.
But I mean, as soon as she learns about Aegon, she's going to be like, what? Are you kidding me?
Well, you also sent her the ships that she used to get to Astapor.
That was to bring her home because she was still useful as a piece.
Yeah,
and again,
he still sent her the ships.
Yes, because he needs to transport her home.
It's going to entirely depend on her state of mind. If she's gone if the dragon has been fully awoken, shall we say, or if she's still...
I don't think it depends that much on that. I think when she learns about Aegon, she's gonna be just like, what? She's gonna feel very betrayed, and we've seen how she has been more and more distrustful over the book, and she's not gonna be okay with that. When you think about her reaction to Jorah's betrayal, she's gonna react strongly to Illyrio's betrayal, I think.
Hopefully this will be the one easy prophecy to work out, the Mama's Dragon.
Yeah.
Just one down.
Okay, folks. Is it time to wrap up?
Yeah.
Sure.
I think.
Cool. Well, that was a very cool chapter discussion. I do like some of these TWOW chapters. I think they just open up so many avenues for theorizing. I love it.
We are all very ready for TWOW. Every time I come on, I always leave the podcast thinking,
I want it now.
So we're 5 days into the new year. Not even a Happy New Year post from George, nothing?
I think wait till the 13th day, because that's when he gives out his disappointing New Year's tweet that TWOW won't be out this year.
Oh my god.
He's done it 2 times now.
All right, folks. Well, for those of you still listening, the next episode of the Reread is going to be hosted by Adam/Drowned Snow. It's going to cover Barristan 2, the Discarded Knight. It's going to cover Quentin 3, the Spurned Suitor, Tyrion 12 from Dance, and then in the after show, we're going to do probably the coolest TWOW chapter of all time, which is Aeron 1, the Forsaken. So get reading, and we hope that you'll join us next time in this final run. Basically, that's episode 99. We finish on 104, so we're really entering the final straits now. So thanks all for joining. This has been cool, and speak to you all soon. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Have a nice day, evening, whatever.
Indeed.